What's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres, with Scoop Duck on 3, coming to you on Monday, August 18th, 2025. We're just 12 days away from Oregon's season opener against Montana State in Eugene at Autzen Stadium. And I'm really happy to be back and talking some ball. Got another guest on for today's show, and it's a big one. Friend of the program, former Oregon quarterback Joey Harrington. Joey, how we doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing all right. Counting down the days to the end of the summer, but I don't say I'm on a different countdown, but when you got a couple kids going back to school, like there's concurrent countdowns. How about that?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't have kids myself, but my fiance is a teacher, so I feel like her countdown is like, oh man, the school year is about to start, and then my countdown's like, oh baby, it's football season. So two very different vibes for sure on that one. But football season's back, and we got plenty of Duck football to talk about. Kind of one of the things I want to get your perspective on that has me really excited for this season is just how it's like a new wave of talent under Lanning this season, right? I think that the team is maybe the youngest that it's been since Lanning's been in charge, and I think that you could maybe say that from particularly the quarterback situation, right, with Bo and then Dylan, and then now presumably Dante. But it kind of feels like a little bit of a prove it year for Lanning. Not that I have any skepticism around him, but just all these top recruiting classes, you finally get to let them loose. So how do you feel about that?
You're cutting out on me here.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah. I got you now. Sorry. Yeah, it cut out a bit too. But I think we're okay. Let me close some tabs.
Okay.
Did you hear my question, Joey?
Prove it year, young players.
Yeah. How do you just feel about that? All that talent that has kind of been waiting in the wings, and it's going to be put on the field this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting year, and I think it's different than what we've seen over the last, really 3 seasons, particularly at the quarterback position. Right, we've had over the last 3 years, we've had some of the best quarterback play in the history of our program. One of the guys, set, what was it, the career completion percentage or single season completion percentage? Like, there was an efficiency. The other guy played like 173 games of college football. Like, there was an efficiency that existed at the quarterback position that just made everybody else around them better. This year, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't necessarily say that we're young. It's just that at the positions that seem to be most the focal point, quarterback, wide receiver, we are. We've got an experienced offensive line. We got Bryce coming back on the we got some defensive players coming back. We got some guys up front. Running backs, we're strong at running back. We're not young at tight end. Like, there are other positions that don't necessarily get the visibility. That I wouldn't say that we're young at. It's purely just in inexperience. I mean, even if Dante plays, or Austin for that matter, they both have 3 years of college experience, right? It's not like they're brand new true freshman quarterbacks. These are guys that have been around the block, just haven't spent a whole lot of time on the field. I think the biggest question mark, I think, is going to be at the wide receiver position, but that's also potentially the most exciting in that, we have arguably the best recruit that we've had in school history coming in at that position. So I think there is definitely a lot to pay attention to, but I wouldn't necessarily say that we're young. I think that we are inexperienced at some pretty visible positions, but I like where the rest of the roster sits.
Sure. And maybe young isn't quite the right word to use. Maybe inexperienced is a better way to put it at some of those spots. Like, I just feel like there's so many redshirt freshmen that like kind of just got here, but they've been around for a season and had 2 off seasons with the program that they're going to be looking at and ready to kind of say, hey man, we need you to step in here and take on a bigger role. And maybe we had an opportunity to go out and get somebody in the portal, but we're kind of building from within, like Mike Olowski said about the linebackers. I think that you could use that philosophy for a lot of positions on this roster, and it's exciting stuff.
But that's the reality of college football now, right? Gone are the days of someone sitting for 2, 3, 4 years to play as a junior and senior. It just doesn't happen anymore. So I think you have to shift your framework, or shift the way you look at things, and understand that this is a different world. Like this is not 20 years ago. Hell, this isn't 5, 10 years ago. I mean, this is a new world where guys come in and they expect to play now. And the fact that we have been able to recruit the type of players that we have been able to, and keep some of them around for a couple years, says something about what Dan is doing and the quality of player that he's been recruiting. So I really, really like where we're sitting right now, because we have some of those, like you said, guys from within who are going to be stepping in and filling some of those roles.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the wideouts, Joey, because that was one of the points that I had written down here in my notes prior to getting on the show with you here. We all know about Evan Stewart's injury. That was a brutal blow, but it's not like this room is at a position where, everything is going up in flames just because Evan Stewart got hurt. You'd obviously love to have him if you could. And then we know about the recent development with Jurion Dickey, and Lanning spoke about his suspension. So we're not necessarily expecting him to play a big role, obviously, this year. But I'm feeling pretty good about this room with Dakorien Moore. I think you expect him to play a pretty significant role as a freshman. And then you also have guys like Jeremiah McCullen, Gary Bryant Jr. is coming back. Kyler Casper seems like he's healthy for the first time in a while. Malik Benson, kind of an prove-it year after some stops before Oregon. So I'm feeling excited about this room, and pretty confident that they're going to be able to just field a pretty solid rotation. Like it's a bit of a mystery, but I think you look at the guys at that position and you feel like you should have some confidence there.
Well, I would say that you're expecting Dakorien to play more than a significant role. Like he needs to be the focal point. And that's who's the cat from Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith. That's what he needs to be. Like he is coming in to be that player, the type of immediate impact player that can change a game. So I am excited to see what he specifically is going to be. But there is a little bit of, with the loss of Dickey, there is a little bit of kind of going back to those. I'm trying to think. You had a few years there with Herbert where you had one standout wide receiver, and then some guys. You had this isn't a new thing for Oregon, right? If there's going to be one position where Oregon has historically not produced standouts, it's been at wide receiver, and they've still been able to win a hell of a lot of football games doing that. So I'm not worried about the room. I think I'm excited to see what it becomes. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, probably the biggest question mark out of all the position groups.
Yeah, and I think I'm also excited to see what kind of a role Kenyon Sadiq plays, because he's just a do-it-all guy that I think Will Stein has said as much. Like, you want to get that guy a lot of touches. So as you're kind of feeling out the receiver room a little bit, it's not like you have no other options. I think Noah Whittington will play a big role in the passing game as well, coming out of the backfield. Dink Riggs has talked a lot about his role as, kind of playing a receiver in the past. And I think that's an exciting element to add to it as well. But I think just with Dakorien, I'm excited as anybody else to see what he can do. But I almost feel like, I don't know, is it fair to place those kind of expectations on him as a Jeremiah Smith? That's what you're hoping to get out of him, but people are already
living right now, right? I mean, that's if you're gonna come in, if you're gonna, I don't say allow yourself to be publicized, right? This is a 5-star best high school player in the country, getting paid a large amount of money, getting a lot of notoriety, that's my point, is that if this was 10, 20 years ago, sure, I'd be pumping the brakes. Like, okay, he's a young kid. Like, let's let him develop. Let's let him settle in. But that's not college football anymore. It really isn't. And you are expected to come in and make an immediate impact. That is right, wrong, or indifferent. That is the world that we live in. You are getting paid a large amount of money to do a job. Like this is an entire different conversation, right? Like this, about whether it's right to put those type of expectations on an 18-year-old kid, right? But these are the conversations that people were having with me or about me when I was drafted to play in Detroit, right? We're paying you a large amount of money to go do a job. I was a professional, right? And so that's the line that I think is blurred a little bit. Are these college athletes? Are they professionals? Well, the way that college football is now, they are professional athletes. Now, is an 18-year-old capable or emotionally mature enough to handle those type of expectations? I would say the majority of them are not. However, you have your examples of your Kobe Bryants and your Moses Malone and your Kevin Garnett's and those guys who have come in and been extremely young and played a professional sport at a high level for a long time. So I mean, it can be done, but yeah, I think if you're making the argument, or if the conversation is it right to put those expectations on them? That's a different conversation to be having, and more of a global context around the state of college football. The fact is that right now, the way it exists, he is getting paid a large amount of money. He is accepted the role of the superstar wide receiver, the guy who's going to come in, and that's what he's expected to do. So it's I don't, if we're going to have the conversation, I don't necessarily like it, but it is what it is right now, and that's what's going to be expected of him.
Everything you said is spot on, and I agree with it, Joey. I think I'm glad that you mentioned the draft, because I think you can take it a step further, and you kind of started it. Like, you can look at him as Oregon's first round draft pick, right? Like, and they have multiple of those. And if you're just looking at former 5-star recruits, right? Like, hop on over to the other side of the ball, 5-star cornerback Naeem Offord. Like, I don't know if the circumstances are necessarily the same, but like, that's a guy that you bring in, and it's like, hey, we lost all of our starters from last year, so you could play a role right away as well. And it really is like what Dane Lanning says, like, if you're good enough, you're old enough. So I totally agree with what you said there, and I'm excited to see what Dakorien looks like this year. I think, I can't bring you on and not talk a little bit about the quarterback situation with you. I just want to get some more of your perspective as far as like, Dante's journey and kind of maybe what you think fans could expect this year, because he's a former 5-star. We know the resume and all of that. But he's hasn't played a whole lot aside from the UCLA. So I'm just kind of wondering what maybe your expectations are for him this year, because he's got all the talent in the world, man.
It comes back to this whole conversation. What are my expectations of him? Wasn't Ty Thompson a 5-star? Right?
What was a 5-star? Yeah.
What does that really mean? Like that's the thing that, this is a whole philosophical discussion about whether or not it's right to be putting these type of expectations on 18-year-old kids, right? Now, Dante is not an 18-year-old kid anymore. This is his third year in college football. And I think that, and you may know something that I don't, maybe I haven't. He hasn't been named the starter, has he?
No, he hasn't.
So,
but that's the expectation. I feel like
it could be. Like, the thing that has me more, I'm not worried about these guys' performance.
Sure.
Right? They have enough depth in this quarterback room to find somebody to go out and play well. What I'm curious about is, how do you build for the future? How do you build a depth chart? How do you have, let's say, I don't know what these guys are getting paid. Austin's getting paid X and Dante's getting paid 2X, but Austin plays a little bit better than Dante. But maybe if you start Austin, then Dante leaves and goes somewhere else. Or if you start Dante, then does Austin stick around and be your backup? Or do you plan on like your third or fourth string guy being your backup? Like, there's this whole chess game that kind of goes on behind the scenes that really has nothing to do with your ability to play football. It has to do with whether or not you're going to stick around. So what do I expect of Dante? If he plays, I expect him to play well. I don't expect him to be perfect. I expect him to make a lot of mistakes. different mistakes than we saw from, or I should say different than what we saw from Dylan or Bo over the last 3 years, right? We've been completely spoiled.
Oh yeah.
With the type of quarterback play. I have to guess that his completion percentage is going to be lower. He's going to make more mistakes. And he could potentially make more big plays, because a lot of times what young quarterbacks do is they force the issue. They try and make a splash. They try and push the ball down the field and make that big play. By the time you get older, you realize, hey, just take it. Oh, and then I'll get that'll open up for me. So I think what we're going to see, whether it's Austin or Dante, is going to be a different type of play. I think it's going to be good. I don't think it's going to be, I could be wrong. I don't think it's going to be groundbreakingly exceptional. That's going to land him in New York in December. But I think it's going to be pretty dang good. And I think, like I said, I'm most curious about what happens once coach says, you're the guy. What does the other one do? Because that, more often than not, you need two guys, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to get somewhere at the, take the Ohio State, when Marcus, they're playing their third quarterback by the time they got to that championship game, right? Yep. You need depth at that position. And I'm curious to see if Dan can keep the other one around when the other one is named the starter.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's the quarterback situation and managing those battles has become one of the most challenging things for any head coach to manage. And when do you even announce the starter? That's a decision that a head coach has to make as well. So very, very interesting stuff there, just about Dante and the growing pains that I think we're going to see, but we both still think he's going to be a heck of a player. The last one I want to kind of wrap up with you here, Joey, is a little bit more of a broad one, but still one that I think is worth asking here as we get to the season is just defining success. I think it's different for every team every year. Obviously, you want to win a bunch of games. You want to go to the playoff, and Oregon fans know more than anyone, you want to get that national championship if you can. But just wanted to get your perspective on what you would define as success for Oregon this year.
It's an interesting question. I don't think success is determined by championships, and be that conference or national, right? And conversely, if you're not at least in the conversation or in the picture for it at the end of the season, then I think some things will have gone wrong for Oregon. You mentioned earlier that this is kind of a prove it year for Dan. I would disagree with that, but I also come from the perspective of, I'm not going to fire a guy after one bad season. Right. I'm not, or even bad. I continually go back to the Nebraska, Frank Solich goes 9-3 and they fire him. And for the next 2 decades, they're trying to get back to some sort of, respectability, right? There's things happen during the course of a season that we don't see from the outside. There are internal workings. There are injuries we don't know about. There are guys that go to school and, cut class and they're suspended and this happens. I could give you a list a mile long of things that people didn't know about our 2000, 2001 teams. And coaches have to deal with that. Their job is to handle those things and then produce on the field, right? So I'm kind of rambling in a tangent here, because the question was, what determines a successful season? I can't put a number on it, right? You could have 3 injuries at your quarterback position. You could get Dakorien Moore gets hurt, and now you've lost your first 2 wide receivers, and trying to figure it out. There are ways that success can be defined by doing the best you can possibly do with what you have available. And you can look at the conference and say, Penn State's a pretty dang good team. And if we get beat by them, then, that might happen. And we may end up out of the mix. There's so many things. I think for me, it's simply being in the conversation, right? Because that's step one. I've been in enough of these situations where I know that if you can simply make it to, what is it, those final 8, those final 12, to simply get your foot in the door, then it's like, hey, in a one game, me against you, you never know what's going to happen.
All bets are off.
Exactly, right? And like we saw last year, you could be the best team in college football and still lose in the first round, right? It can go both ways. So for me, it's simply being in the conversation, right? Because we never truly know what is happening on the inside of that locker room, what's happening on the inside of those meeting rooms, to know whether or not the coaches have done a good job or a poor job in putting that roster together and getting the best out of what they have. That's a long answer. That's a long non-answer for what is, to me, a more complex question. You probably wanted me to say he has to win 12 games in a national championship or he's fired. Like,
no.
I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that belief, and I don't think that I ever will.
And that's super fair. I mean, I wasn't trying to get a specific answer out of you. It's just, an interesting question. And I feel like one that could have guided the entire episode. But it seems like you're kind of getting at, be in the mix to potentially make the playoff. And I think that that's a fair goal for the Ducks to have, or even you could also say be in the mix to win the conference again.
Well, I mean, think about it like this. You can right now take a piece of paper and write down really the only 12 teams that have a chance to win a national championship. Maybe there's 6, maybe you could stretch it to 16. Mm-hmm. But the way that college football is set up right now, there is only a handful of teams that have an opportunity to be in that playoff. That's it. That's the reality of this. Like we keep talking about like this new world of college football. That is the reality of it. And so if Oregon is one of the haves as opposed to the have-nots, which they are, then you expect them to be in that conversation. You expect them to put themselves in a position where at the end of the year, they could qualify or be selected for that playoff spot. And at that point, for me, that's the expectation. If you are far outside of that, then something went wrong. Other than that, I think that's a successful season for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the same page as you, Joey. So I feel like I don't want to repeat too much of what you said, but I know you got to get going, so I want to be respectful of your time. But just before I get you out of here, anything else you wanted to add as far as like what's going on with the foundation or Oregon football, anything like that, just before you get on out of here?
No, I appreciate it. No, we're just gearing up here to start get the wheels rolling for our fall fundraiser for the foundation, but no details for that right now. It's we're still, like I said, we're still coming out of the end of summer. I got soccer tryouts. I got back to school shopping. I got, that's what we're focused on right now. So if anybody wants to do our back to school shopping, then I'd love to help promote that.
Gotcha. Okay, Joey. Well, we sure do appreciate you making some time to join us on this episode of the pod. If you guys want to find more of me, you can follow me anywhere at Torres Sports. Subscribe to the Scoop Duck on 3 YouTube channel. Come and see us at scoopduck.com. You can sign up for just $1 right now. So great time to take advantage of that. And then go ahead and share the show wherever you find us and with every Duck fan you know. But a big thank you to Joey, and thank you to you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish Podcast.